Welcome to the 14th episode of Patio Pondering Podcast. Today's episode is a compilation of answers to two questions I asked people at the 2025 Fort Wayne Farm Show. Those questions were, what is the most important item for agriculture in 2025? And what is one thing from your agricultural roots that you use regularly or every day in your life? Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy the thought-provoking answers to these two questions.
I'm at the 2025 Fort Wayne Farm Show with Isabel Wellman, grain merchandiser at the Waterloo branch of CGB, and she's going to answer our two questions today. First, in your opinion, what is the most important thing in 2025 for agriculture?
I would say one thing to kind of keep an eye on as we go into 2025 is all of the soybean processing plants coming online here in 2025 and 2026. That will definitely open up quite a few markets in a lot of areas.
Yes, the SAF we've been talking about for quite a few years, so that's a great answer. The second question is, what is one thing from your upbringing, from agriculture, that you use regularly or every day in your life?
I would say one of the most, or the thing I guess I use the most is communication in my network through doing 4-H and through going to Purdue and studying agriculture. You definitely grow a big network, and keeping that network and communicating across different aspects of agriculture has definitely helped me through my career.
We definitely have a unique opportunity in agriculture to network and communicate. So thank you, Isabel. I'm with Neil Koch, consultant with G&K Agronomy out of Harlan, Indiana. He's going to answer our two questions. First, what is the most important thing in ag in 2025?
Well, I think for 2025, guys need to focus on just sound agronomic principles. Like, just make sure you're covering the basics before you worry about any of the frills and the thrills that come along. Because there's a lot of people out there that want to sell you something, or that want you to take interest in something that they're providing, but you just got to make sure your basics are covered. Soil management is more important than people tend to realize, and they forget about it quickly. So that'd be my direction, just be make sure you're covering the basics before you get into the...
So as Grandma would say, mind your P's and Q's, get a good foundation under you. The second question, what is one thing that came from your agricultural upbringing that you use every day or regularly in your life?
Well, from my background, personally, I mean, it's heavily rooted in family. So I think you got to take advantage of those family opportunities that are around you, or family assets or resources that you have available to you. You might overlook them sometimes. If you got an uncle that just retired, he might be looking to drive a tractor. If you got a nephew that's interested in agriculture, but he lives off farm, that may be a chance to get somebody young started in the business. So I always like to turn to family when I can, and that's my first opportunity. And then if I can't find somebody in the family that wants to do it, then I might have to hire or look elsewhere. But for my upbringing, that's where my heart goes, is just a family.
Agriculture is family rooted. It's a lifestyle, after all, that is a business. So that's a great answer, Neil. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jim.
I'm with Greg Kneubuhler, owner of G&K Concepts from Harlan, Indiana. Greg, what is the most important thing in ag in 2025?
Well, in terms of row crop production or livestock or both or anything,
from your perspective, what is the most important thing in 2025?
I think really no matter what business you're in, you got to understand positives and negatives and know your costs and know where you can actually make money and what to spend money on, and don't get hung up on all the reels and frills. Agriculture is coming out of a period of time where we've made more money in the last 6 or 8 years than we did in the previous 40. And we've been accustomed to try this and try that, and this will make you more money, and this will make you more money, and they in fact don't. Now, we test tons and tons of things, and rarely do they ever pan out. I would not spend money on something unless you have the confidence that it's going to give you some kind of a return, because margins are too tight to be doing that.
So get back to basics, do the basics right, and be profitable to survive for next year.
It's kind of funny how the basics actually work. And if you focus on fundamentals, my family's a basketball family. We love basketball. And guess what wins ball games? Fundamentals. Guess what will win the game of farming? Fundamentals. Focus on fundamentals and you'll survive this storm because it's going to be lean and mean. And it's not going to get better for a while.
So it doesn't matter if you're worrying about how to pass the ball or getting your pH and nutrients right. We're getting back to the basics this year.
Yep, that comes from everything. I don't care if it's tillage or seed or cover crops or nutrition. Just know what you're spending your money on or understand what you need to spend your money on because you can spend a lot of money fast. It spends a lot faster than it makes.
So I can resemble that comment, Greg. So the second question is, what is one thing from your agricultural upbringing that you use either every day or on a regular basis?
Well, I thought about this a few moments, and honestly, this isn't necessarily from my agricultural upbringing, but a thing that I cannot live without is my phone because I can conduct so much business from my phone and access so much from my phone that is probably the most valuable asset that I own in terms of my business, being around farming, being around our farm. I got to have my phone.
Well, that's a consistent thread with a lot of our guests, the technology, and phone is a great indicator of technology.
Yeah, that's a good word, technology. And I think there's one thing to also keep in mind. Just like you can insure yourself broke, which you can insure whatever you want. You can downright flat insure yourself broke. You can also technology yourself broke. So we're sitting at the Fort Wayne Farm Show, and you can walk through this whole show, and there's tons of things to spend your money on, tons of pieces of technology to spend your money on, a lot of which are very good, but you also can you can technology yourself broke. You don't have to have every bell and whistle to raise 240 bushel corn or 200 bushel corn. You don't have to do that. So don't technology yourself broke, which is really easy to do in agriculture.
So get back to the basics. Technology, just another tool.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know what? It's old school today. You might consider a phone old school, but that is one of the most valuable pieces of technology I got, and it never leaves my side.
Yeah, I can attest to that. So thank you, Greg. Appreciate your time.
You bet.
I'm with Scott Hartsell, Sales and Nutrition Advisor at Milan Center Feeds. And Scott, what is one thing that is really important to the ag industry in 2025?
I think that with the new administration coming in, obviously tariffs could be a challenge again that we have to deal with and weather that storm. But I really think that with the new Health and Human Services outlook, we're going to have to take a look at some of the things that we're doing, making sure that those are positive things. Maybe have some secondary research that's funded by companies that are not those companies that are profiting from it. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes within the government regulations. So those are things that we're going to have to adapt to. And, maybe there's some other practices that are already in place with regenerative ag that, people might be able to capitalize on, or hopefully we find out if that has extra value that it claimed to have. So I think those are going to be some big changes coming up with what the government regulations are going to have, especially with pesticide use throughout the next 4 years anyways.
Well, that is definitely an obscure view, thinking about what Robert Kennedy Jr. might impact ag in 2025 and beyond. The second question for you is, what is one thing from your agricultural roots that you use regularly or every day in your life?
I think the biggest thing is that we don't work on an 8 to 5 schedule. And so being able to be flexible and when people need you, and it doesn't even have to be customers, it could be friends that need you. If it's at 9 o'clock at night, you need to answer the phone. And you need to have boundaries too, but you need to be able to work outside of those normal 8 to 5 hours and make sure that you're working hard and doing the best you can to help everybody be successful.
Well, Scott, flexibility is definitely something that I think a lot of us in ag deal with every day. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
I'm with James Wolf, the County Director and Ag Extension Agent for Allen County at the Fort Wayne Farm Show. And James, what is one thing that you think is really important for ag in looking forward into 2025?
I think probably one thing looking into 2025 that's going to be important is just looking at our markets, paying attention to what the markets are doing and how things are affected weather patterns still seem up in the air. There's lots of things crop-wise, yield-wise, but paying attention to the markets is really where you kind of help get yourself through even those bad situations.
And we have a little event coming up next week that might impact those markets with the inauguration of our new president. So our second question that we're asking at the Fort Wayne Farm Show is, what is one thing that you've taken from your agricultural roots that you use every day or regularly in your life?
Probably something I use pretty regularly in my job with Extension. I grew up in 4-H, and just, the leadership and the ability to make relationships and learn new things is pretty much what I do on a daily basis. Going out there trying to learn something new every day to improve what I'm doing and what I'm able to share with everybody else.
You bring an interesting perspective. We go into jobs thinking we're going to do one thing, and it ends up doing something different. And your reference to leadership's a great one. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm with Brent McKillip, owner of McKillip Machinery from Wabash. And Brent, in your unique position as a used equipment dealer, what do you think is the biggest challenge for ag in 2025?
I think, obviously the prices of the commodities and the inputs and things like that's always a big challenge. It seems like now, with our business, when nobody's buying anything new and it's kind of a lower market for the new, our used business actually kind of climbs a little bit, because if people are buying anything, they're going to buy used. So the start of 2025 is better for us than I thought it would be. We've been selling a fair amount here, in the first couple weeks of the year, which can be one way or the other depending. But I think the biggest challenge, is getting guys through this year and the next couple years, unless the prices come back on the commodities, getting them through those years. I'm not good at watching the markets and things like that, but as far as commodities go, but I keep a close eye on the equipment market. The equipment market's softened some, as we all know, but the good quality stuff is still selling and good.
So the second question we're asking people at Fort Wayne Farm Show is, what is one thing that you brought from your agricultural roots that you use on a regular basis in your life?
Well, I mean, everything I do is agriculture. With the selling the used equipment, we have cattle, we make some hay. We're involved with custom spreading some lime, 10 or 15,000 ton of lime every year. So every aspect of what I grew up on a pretty sizable farm, and my knowledge of just running that stuff and working with that stuff as a kid and all through, growing up, helps me sell that stuff to customers because I understand it, that's, I don't, a lot of people in my position may not have that opportunity as a kid to grow up using that stuff or working on it or fixing it. And I feel that benefits me.
Your unique experience of using the equipment as a youth helps you sell to people that actually are going to use it. Well, great. Thank you, Brent. Appreciate it. I'm with Bob Prible of Prible Ag. And Bob, in your opinion, what is the most important issue affecting ag for 2025?
Well, I think we've got a lot of government regulation and a lot of things like that to just affect us that we just don't need. So I'm hoping that maybe everybody's going to get together here and get this government a lot smaller than it is, and that's going to make it a lot easier to do business.
It seems like a lot of people are waiting to see what happens next Tuesday after the inauguration. So the second question for you is, what is one thing from your agricultural roots that you use every day or regularly in your life?
I think, Mom and Dad always taught us just to have a good work ethic. They just, it's not always necessarily how much money you have or whatever. It's just being able to go out, work hard every day, and earn what you have. And that just is something that I think has just been really good from the agriculture.
Well, you're not the first person to sum it up saying, get out of bed and get something done. So thank you, Bob, for your time today. I'm with Jamie Bultemeier, corporate sales with A&L Great Lakes Labs. And Jamie, in your opinion, what is the most important thing for ag in 2025?
What I've been talking to fellow farmers about and what I've been talking to clients about is consistency. I don't think this is a year to try to do anything fancy or wild. Stick to the basics of what you know. Tried and true is probably going to get you through. Keep your head down and keep moving forward, but you got to be profitable. It's hard selling grain right now, but it's hard to go broke if you sell grain at a profit. So how do you get there?
you are not the first person to talk about getting back to the basics. So our second question, Jamie, is what is one thing from your agricultural roots that you use with your business or your life every day or on a regular basis?
You like asking tough questions, don't you, Jim? And the biggest thing is don't be afraid to talk to people. It's whether it's a farm show, and I work with some other people here. How do you get them into your booth? As they're walking down the aisle, you talk to them, you shake your hands. Hey, you remember who they are? Even if it's a familiar face, go for it. And it doesn't matter if it's somebody walking down the aisle at the trade show or CEO of a company. Yes, you have to communicate with the people at that level for the proper respect, make appointments, but there are people too. They're not unapproachable. Go for it. The answer is no till you ask.
I think that's a great suggestion that there's not a stupid question. So if you don't ask the question, you don't get an answer. So thank you, Jamie. I'm at the Fort Wayne Farm Show with Mike Burkhart, a retired farmer and CEO of the Travis Burkhart Foundation from Washington, Indiana. And Mike, what is, in your opinion, is the most important thing that ag needs to worry about in 2025?
Well, I think coming into 25 is like most other years, you're going to have to make sure and watch your finances extremely tight, but don't make decisions just based on what the neighbor's doing. Do your game, stay within your game. I always tell young guys, put a set of blinders on, keep your checkbook hanging out in front of your nose, and then don't worry about if the neighbor's got something, because you've got to focus on what your game is, what your farm is, and that's how you're going to have to stay successful, because the costs are up and down all the time. So you got to go with it. You got to know what your costs and your break even is. Otherwise, you're not going to be here for next year.
Well, and Mike, you're not the first person that's been hammering home the cost. Second question, what is one thing from your agricultural roots that you use every day or regularly in your life?
Well, I tell you what, the FFA kids here are a big presence here. And I go back and I tell these kids that the things that I learned through FFA with Robert's Rule of Order, how to run a meeting, and just the basic parts of life, they're so valuable that still even today, some of the things I learned in FFA, I still use yet today. But, you try to learn and watch other people and what they do and how they do it. That's a big value for kids trying to get started now, is just to patiently watch, but also understand that you're going to have some sacrifices, and also understand that you're probably going to have be very diversified. That it's going to take more than one income, because if you sock everything into one style of income, then if it fails, you failed all over. So I don't care if you've got livestock or if you've got a trucking agency or whatever it is, but those things over the years, the ones that have been diversified are the ones that I've seen that survived and stayed the course.
So it's not only in looking at farm finances and hunkering down for a tough year or in life, it's just get back to the basics, right?
Yeah, and family's important. What you don't want to forget is that you get so tied up in trying to make a living that the family part, you push it aside, because if you've got kids, they're only going to be around for a while. And so you want to make sure and take that time, because if you don't catch that generation of kids before they have gone to the public school system, before 5 years old, that's when you put your principles of life in them so that they carry that with them for the rest of their life.
It's a great point. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I am lucky enough to be at the Fort Wayne Farm Show with the infamous Rob Winters, farm director for the world famous WOWO. Rob, we've got the two questions we're asking guests here at the Fort Wayne Farm Show. In your opinion, what is the most impactful or most important thing that ag needs to worry about for 2025?
It all boils down to what we learned in college at Econ 101, and that is supply and demand. And if we can increase demand any number of different ways, and that's whether it's domestically or globally, that fixes so much. But I got to believe that increasing demand is going to be one of the things that can really change a lot. It's not that we can't do that much about bringing down input prices. Since we get fertilizer out of Canada, we get fertilizer out of the Middle East, we get fertilizer out of Russia, we get out of Israel, all kinds of different other countries around the world. Pretty difficult for us to make an impact on that, particularly if we're talking about tariffs. But demand can go right to, say, E15. E15 for a corn farmer is going to make a remarkable difference in their bottom line.
demand. If we've proven that we could grow it, if we could just sell more of it, that'd be better. So the second question I'm asking everybody, Rob, is what is one thing from your agricultural roots you use every day or regularly in your life?
Understanding that if you've been to one farm, you have only seen one farm. And what that basically means that every farm is different. You can put a lot of generalities on it, but particularly in our region, if you look at from the Michigan border to the southern part of the state, there are probably as many as 6 different soil types and combinations thereof. So the same kind of practices are not going to work on every single farm. And even to that, every single farm may have 3 different soil types on it. So, just knowing that, and I learned soils early on. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I was composting because my parents were both master gardeners. And that introduced me to soils and what soils are all about. And so I've always remembered that, and remembered that if you've been to one farm, you've seen one farm.
Well, we try and put things into buckets, and agricultural is, and farms in particular, not an is business. It is an they are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rob. We appreciate it. Coming to you from the Fort Wayne Farm Show.
You bet. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed the interviews and answers to the 2 questions I had with the 10 guests from the Fort Wayne Farm Show. There was some commonality in all their answers, showing us even though our upbringing in ag can be different, there was still a lot of commonality. I'm looking forward to more interviews like this in the future. Stay tuned as we get more guests and look for the expected and the unique in their experiences. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Patio Pondering. We hope you enjoyed exploring both the expected and obscure corners of agriculture with us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Connect with us anytime at jim@patiopondering.com. Until next time, keep growing, exploring, and cultivating.